In this video, we are going to explore what the Group By clause does, how to use it in your queries, and some examples of common scenarios where it can be useful. Let's start with the basics. What is the Group By clause in LINQ? The Group By clause allows you to group elements from a collection, based on a specified key or property. This is similar to the Group By clause in SQL, if you are familiar with that. What does that mean? Let's understand that using a simple example. Assume I have the following data table, which contains 3 different customers. Each customer appears more than once in the table. For each customer there are some orders. To get the sum of all orders of one customer, I can group the rows by the customer. This means, I will have a group for each customer. I have 3 different customers, therefore I will get 3 groups. Each group contains only the rows of one customer. Each group is of type 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗁 of data row. Now using these groups, I can calculate the sum of all orders of this customer. This is what does group clause mean and how it works in general. I will show you some examples later, so that you can understand how to use this clause and what you can do using it. Before that, let me show you the syntax of Group By clause. The basic syntax is as follows. Let's break that down. Element refers to the collection of elements you want to group, for example an array, list, row, etc. Key refers to the property or expression you want to use as the grouping key. If we take the same example of a data table, we can use the customer ID column as key. Group is an optional identifier you can use to refer to the resulting groups in your query. Here we set a variable to store the groups, for example this one. So, only the key is mandatory, and the other parts are optional. But I recommend you to use the following syntax. This is also the syntax, what I will use for this clause. To set the key, we have to set a variable name, equal, then the key. For example, to use customer ID as key, we can write the following statement. So, the variable x is what I created here, and what I can also use later in the query. Row is the range variable, and the column name is customer ID. This means, I want to group the rows of the table by column customer ID. So, this is the end syntax, what I will use for Group By clause. That's all about the syntax. Let's now check some examples to understand this clause, how and when to use. The examples in this video will be only about data tables, but you can use the clause for any data type you need. Let's take the same data table, what I showed you at the beginning. I want to write a LINQ query, to get only the first row for each customer. This means, I want to get only 3 rows as output, because I only have 3 different customers. The row for each customer must be the first one, which appears in the table for the customer. As output, I should get these 3 rows. This is the query to do that. As you see, I am grouping the rows by column customer ID. The groups will be stored in this variable. I have 3 groups in this variable for the 3 customers. Each group is of type 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗁, of data row. After that I use this variable with the method first, to get the first row of each group. First method is one of the LINQ methods, what I will explain later in this course. For now you only have to know, that first method is to get the first element from a sequence. The sequence in this example is a collection of data rows. So, using first I will get the first row from each group. At the end I am converting the output to data table. So, as output I will get a data table, which contains only 3 rows. This is how Group By clause works. Let's check another example about data tables. For example the following table. It contains different rows. I only have 2 departments, sales and marketing. Assume I want to get the count of employees in each department. This means, I want to get the count 4 for sales, and count 3 for marketing. I want to get the output as an integer array. To do that I can use the following query. As you see, I am grouping the rows by column department. This means, I have 2 groups, one for sales and one for marketing. After that I use the group variable with the function count, to get the count of the rows inside the group. At the end I am converting the output to array. This means, I will get the following array as output. Number 4 is for sales group, because the first row in the table is sales. The number 3 is for marketing group. As you see, I use the same structure to write the query. I can also adjust this query to make it more clear, to know which number belongs to which department. The query will be as following. As you see, I added this expression in select clause. Here I use the variable x, what I defined in group clause. This contains the name of the department. This query returns the following string array. As you see, I have the name of the department and the count of the employees in this department. This means, I can use both variables inside the query, x and group. Let's check another example. I have the following table. I have some duplicate rows in the table. The primary key of this table is the column ID. Assume I want to get each row only once. In other words, I want to get the unique rows from the table. As output I want to get the following table. So, I have each row only once. To do that, I can use the following query. Here I use the column ID as key, because it's the primary key. And I use the method first, to get the first row from each group. In other words, I will get only the unique rows from the table. The output will be the following table. This query is very important for you, if you want to get the unique rows from a table using LINQ. This query is in case the primary key is only one column. But if you have more than one column as primary key, you can use all columns in group clause. For example, let's say the primary key in this table is the columns ID and first name. To get the unique rows from the table based on both columns, I can use the following query. Here I have two keys for both columns. So, for each key I created a variable and used a column. The output of this query will be the following table. This is also how to use group clause for more than one column. Or in other words, this is how to use group clause with more than one key. You can also use more than two keys, if you need that. Before ending this video, let me show you some queries, what you need once you are working with data tables. The first two queries are to get the unique rows from a data table, based on one column or two columns. I already explained both queries in the video. The second two queries are to get the duplicate rows from a data table, which appear more than once in the table. This means, we will get each row only once, which appears in the table more than once. All other rows, which appear only once in the table, will not be in the output of these queries. Here I use the group variable with the function count to set a condition. If the group count is greater than 1, it means that the row appears more than once. And using first method I will get the row only once in the output table. The last two queries are to get the not duplicate rows from a data table. This means, I will get only the rows as output, which appear only once in the table. This can be checked using the group variable with the function count. If the count is equal to 1, it means the row appears only once in the table. These queries can be used again and again. You only have to change the column names, and also to add more columns if you need that. One last query I want to show you is the following. Using this query, you will get the duplicate rows from the table. But here I am using all columns of the table. This means, as output of the query you will get only the rows, which appear more than once in the table. The output will be each duplicate row only once. And the check here is for all columns, not for only one or two columns. As you see, both rows appear more than once in the table. But the row with ID 4 is not duplicate, because not all columns are similar in both rows, therefore I didn't get this row as output. This query is easier to use than the other queries, if you have many different columns, and you don't want to add each column separate in the group clause. You can also use the same group clause expression from this query in any other query, if you want to check the content of each column. That's all you have to learn about group by clause for now. Later in the course, I will use this clause in most queries with other clauses and methods. So, you will learn more about this clause later.